is also quite important. I think I believe we all learned one or two things from the last time, even if you are not being able to speak right now, but we want to believe that you've learned key takeaways, new things that you want to implement in our various facilities. Okay, at this point, I think I would like to hand over the mic now to the facilitator, person of architect. Over to you, sir. Welcome, sir.
All right, thank you, Barakat. Good evening, all. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can.
I hear you, sir.
Can hear you. Can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
And I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, I can see it. I can hear you
Yes,
as well.
we can see you.
Yes, I'm seeing it.
Today we'll be looking at building fabric and structured maintenance. This course is meant to give you a general overview of the makeup of a building, because one of the things that the facility manager does is to interact with the built environment. And it's very important for you to understand the several elements and the components of buildings that you work with. Every building must have part of the components that we're going to discuss here this afternoon or this evening. And so it's very important for us to know about the different elements and the components of this building. By way of introduction, every building in itself requires regular maintenance. And I don't know if you have ever encountered this scenario when, especially for those that travel to the village once in a year, towards the end of the year, you know, when you get back to your village houses and you open the doors, you will find out that everywhere is already dusty, dirty, and you notice that some of the elements of the building probably would be out of place or is about to just generally deteriorating. And that normally occurs. It doesn't matter the status you left the building when you were traveling. When you come back, no matter how it is, I know that you will not leave your building dirty. And then when you come back, you will now decide, you see that the whole place is dusty and requires it for you to clean. And before you even stay, at least if you can't clean that first day that you've come, you clean the room or where you will be able to have spend the night, and then the next day you do proper cleaning of the whole building. Because nobody has been in that building. How come the building is dirty? How come the building requires a little bit of touch-up? Now, that being said, it means that every building that you have, once the building is not occupied, it deteriorates faster. Building maintenance is essential to prolong the building life cycle and to reduce company loss. When a building is neglected, defects can occur, which may result in expensive and unavoidable damage to the building fabric or structure itself. Now, when you leave a building for a long time, nobody stays there, it deteriorates faster. That's why we always say that there's this part in building construction we call practical completion, where the building gets to a point where it becomes inhabitable, where the owners can move into the building and yes, it doesn't look completely finished, but they can move in and then the other touch-ups are done while the building is being occupied. That's what we call practical completion. Most buildings is occupied at that stage. If you wait for a building to finally get finished before you occupy, you will discover that the building will never be finished, because a building requires human beings in the space to be able to make the building breathe and make it come alive. That's why if you notice that if you abandon buildings, after a while, you discover that the floor tiles begin to give way, the wooden doors begin to shrink and all that because there's nobody in the building. So it's very important to note that buildings need to be maintained from time to time. Now, looking at the different elements of a building, I will start with walls. However, before we go to walls, the walls sit on something we call foundation. And we have basically 4 types of foundation. You have the strip foundation, which is a traditional one everybody knows, where everybody where they dig the ground, pour a little bit of concrete, and then you set block up. That's the strip foundation. You have the pad foundation. This is the one that if you notice the road, you see this square concrete stuff that the street lights stand on. That square things are called pad foundation. It's normally used on the underneath of columns. And we have the raft foundation. Raft foundation is normally used where the load bearing capacity of the soil is quite low. That is where you have a lot of loose soil or swampy area. That's where you use more of the raft foundation, because the flat foundation is built in, the principle is to build a foundation that almost looks like a table that the building will now sit on top. Then finally, we have the pile foundation. These are the ones where you use where the load bearing capacity is extremely bad and the load coming on that building is very heavy. So you need to drive the piles to a more stable soil or part of the earth crust underneath where it can stably carry the structure and make sure the building doesn't sink. And that's just a way to just look at types of foundation that we have in a building. Then for walls, walls actually sit on foundation. A wall is a structure that defines an area and carries a load or provides shelter or security. Walls in buildings form the fundamental part of the superstructure or separates interior rooms. Now, also in a building outlet, there are 2 major classifications. You have the superstructure and the substructure. Substructure is what you cannot see, that is buried under the ground. Anything that you see upward, that you can see with your eyes in the building, is called the superstructure. Somebody is saying he cannot hear me. I don't know why he's coming. I hope you can hear me this time. Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, yes, yes.
We
Can hear you clearly.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
It's
We
just
can hear you clearly, sir.
all right, please.
the what?
Okay, like I mentioned, you have the superstructure and the substructure. The substructure is what occurs under the ground. Superstructure is what occurs above the ground that you can see with your eyes. And then I said, walls is that part of the building that has connection with the foundation, that transmits the load of the building through the foundation. And there are 2 types, 2 classifications of walls generally. It's called, we have the load-bearing walls and the non-load-bearing walls. Load-bearing walls are the walls that carry the roof and the building load itself and transfer it to the foundation. It's either an internal or external wall. Non-load-bearing walls are basically passive walls. They are just walls that do not carry any load. They only carry their own safe load, their ground surface load. And they're just used to partition spaces in the building. Now, for non-bearing wall, non-load bearing walls, you find that much more in a building construction where it is called the frame structure. The frame structure is that kind of building where the whole building is suspended on columns and beams. The building load itself is distributed from the beams to the columns and then transmitted to the foundation. So the walls in between the columns and the beams are usually non-load bearing walls. Also, we have several applications of walls, different types of walls. We have the pattern wall, which I just started to describe. The pattern wall just separates the roof within the building. It is good for sound insulation and also as a little bit of firewall. We have firewall itself. Firewalls are majorly built for fire resistance. They stop the spread of fire within the building and also curtail the fire or fire inside the building itself so it doesn't spread to other structures. We have the shear walls. Shear walls are walls that are built to be able to withstand the impact of wind and earthquake. Shear walls are normally found on skyscrapers because the higher you go in building a skyscraper, the more impact the wind has on it. So every skyscraper you see around actually have movement. The building moves. The impact of the wind comes from the building. And why you do not feel the move of the building is because the building have shear walls and what some persons call building core. The shear walls are normally made of total reinforced concrete to be able to withstand. That is what holds the building firm against the impact of wind. We have the movable partition, where you have partitions that are just used that have tires that you can move around. You have curtain walls or building facades, which are normally made of glass, decorative glass and all that, normally found office buildings, high-rise buildings, modern structures. I'm sure we know we have a lot of curtain walls around us these days. We also have the cavity wall. Cavity wall is where you have two walls with a cavity in between a space. It's just used sometimes to prepare penetration of water into the inner wall, and sometimes where you use it to separate two walls, trying to separate, if you have like a terrace building or townhouse, sometimes we have a cavity wall separating each flat unit. We have types of wall finishes. Examples that we have the stained glass finish, which is normally, this is quite old, especially in churches and cathedrals. You see that in mosques, churches, cathedrals, where you have the walls decorated with stained glass. You also have the pebble finish, where you have pebbles. They are installed. Most of the pebbles are on the walls for decorative purpose and to give the building facade a facelift. And sometimes you have pebbles placed around water bodies because they have very strong water resistance in itself. You have plaster cement finish. That's the one you are used to, where you have mortar that is used to plaster and render the wall before you now apply paint on it. You have the marble finish, where you have marble walls itself. You have marble as the finished element, both marble, cut stones, granite, decorative, general decorative, uh, natural occurring stones. We have the POP finish where you have decorative POPs for internal walls. They're normally smooth. These days becoming increasingly popular, where you apply a POP on the wall to make it look smooth, and then you now paint over it. And sometimes you have some decorations done on the wall to make it look nice. You also have a wall cladding with tiles or any other materials. Either you can also use granite, you can use glass, you can use vitrified tiles just to clad the wall to give it fittings. Examples of areas where you normally clad the wall, toilets, the kitchens in your house, which have become a little bit traditional for it to be finished with tiles. Let's go into some building materials, some wall materials. We have plasterboards. They are called POP boards. Most times we call it plasterboards, where you have a POP sandwich in between, and that's the in between is called the plaster. That plaster is what like a plaster of Paris, where you call POP. It's sandwich in between the two boards. It's normally used for we call it drywall, where you have drywall finish. You also have the general bricks, like you know, the red bricks that are fired, clay bricks are fired. You have the mortar that is used to assemble the brick together. You have the plaster, which is cement, sand, and water, which is used for plastering to make the finish look good. You also have floor materials like, you also have materials like tiles that are used for wall finish. Like I mentioned earlier, how you use that in bathrooms, toilets, and kitchens. You also have wooden cladding that are used for decorative purposes, and it also has a very good sound insulation characteristics. That's why most of the barristers' chambers, if you go to law chambers or law courts, the walls are normally finished with wood cladding, so that it makes the walls more insulated, sound insulated. You also have wallpapers that are becoming increasingly popular around us here as a wall finish. Then for external wall materials, we have metal claddings that we use, like the aluco bond that is also becoming popular. You have the stone cladding, where you have cut stones that are used, and you also have the plastic cladding, where you have material that are composite materials that are also used for cladding materials. They are normally cheap, and they are also
from there, you know. Excuse
yourself, please. Okay. Cladding is when you apply one material over another to provide a screen layer used for insulation, weather insulation, and also to improve the appearance of any building. Functions of walls. Walls are used for normally provide a bit of protection from the weather, either hot or cold weather, allows for proper demarcation of any given area, gives barrier to sound and sound insulation, separate spaces in the interior, gives strength and stability to the structure. It also reduces spread of fire from building spaces to other buildings, and gives a little bit of thermal control, and provides security. Thermal control is such a manner that when you're inside a building, it's supposed to shield you a little bit from the temperature outside. When it's extremely cold or extremely hot outside, you should be able to have some level of protection. insulation from the weather. Now, for well maintenance, um, normally we advise that, especially for facility managers, that every morning when you get to your facility, you should go around and inspect all the walls in the building. And one of the things you should watch out for is cracks. We'll talk about that much more. Watch out for cracks, watch out for defects in the building, and then you'll be able to monitor that. Check the walls for movement, check for settlements, and then also correct issues that you may have seen, and properly maintain the landscape surface around the walls. Now, building settlement is critical for you to understand this. Every building that is constructed will always settle because the building, no matter what, exerts a little bit of load on the ground or on the soil. After a while, the building, because you have the soil characteristics, the building exerts a little bit of load on the soil, and it presses down a little bit. That's what we call building settlement. It actually presses down, and then once that happens, if there is ununiform settlement, it causes what we call building cracks. And those cracks are normally not structural. They are just artificial cracks because due to building settlements, there's nothing to be afraid of. But when it becomes structural, is when the foundation fails and the building begins to tear apart from each other. So when you notice that kind of structural cracks, you just observe it over a period of 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. You discover that the crack keep expanding. And once you have that, there is cause for worry because the building foundation might have failed. And if that occurs, unfortunately, that the building may need to be destroyed and then be done again. You need to demolish a building that the foundation has failed because it won't be able to carry the building. Wall maintenance also look at flaking paint is something that you observe. This can be caused by moist. Once the wall has been moist for a while and by drying out, you begin to see building moist. You see flaking paint. Then you also have chalking paint as a result of the weather and sometimes as a result of using defective paint. When you use low quality paint, after a while, when you touch it, it stains your hand. If you use a good quality paint, you're not supposed to have that chalking as an issue. Then you also have moths that grow on the wall as a result of leakage. By the time it's constant, like the pictures you are seeing on the slides, it forms moths. And once that happens, it means that moist is trapped in between the wall. And then to solve that problem, you need to look for the source of leakage. When you stop the source of leakage, you repair the wall by using a little bit of undercoat, and then you paint over it. And the culprit normally for this is just to check water sources. And sometimes it's because of this, maybe roof gutters, where you have roof gutters when they are blocked, and the water is not going through the downpipes, the rainwater downpipes. And so after a while, the water begins to soak through the wall, and then it causes the moist on the wall, the mud that you begin to see. And once you clear the gutters and it flows very well, the wall normally dry out, and then you can paint and make the wall good. And also fixing corroding walls, where you have buildings that are very close to the salt that are as a result of the ocean. It normally affects the wall, where you have a lot of iron content within the water that was used to do the building construction. And once that comes in contact with salt, it begins to corrode. And sometimes when you have a galvanized uh, plumbing pipes buried inside the wall, it's also affected by once that counters the galvanized pipe, it makes it corrode, and after a while, it causes leakage in the wall, and then you see a little bit of damp in the wall. And then to solve that problem, you look for where the pipes are, change that, and then you try and dry out the wall, probably using dehumidifier, and then apply waterproof cement, put putty over it, and then you repaint so that the wall is. Then also, when you have a sealant getting weak at joints, normally where you have joints on the skylights, around the edges of windows, edges of sliding doors, and what have you. Once the sealants are weak over a period of time, it gets damaged. So what you do is that you scrape out the sealant and then you apply fresh one. And once you do that, it normally should stop the problem of things going into the wall. The next building component I'll be looking at is ceilings and roof. Generally, ceilings, overhead interior surface that covers the upper limit of a room. It is generally considered a structural element. So it is not generally considered as a structural element because it's not expected to carry any load. It's just for finish, it's a finish element and to give the space a little bit of beauty. And aesthetics are normally found on the surface of slabs and the covering of the roof structure above it. So at least normally we have different types of ceilings. We have the acoustic ceiling, which are good for sound insulation, and it is not commonly used as it contains asbestos. These are asbestos-based material, which in Nigeria has been banned because it causes cancer. But some people still use it, but it's not as popular as it used to be those days where you have asbestos ceiling boards, asbestos roofing sheets. It's not as common as it used to be because of the properties of the particles of that causes cancer. So it's been phased out, but you still get it in market anyway. But it's not popular as it used to be. It's very those asbestos boards are very good for acoustics. You also have the drywall ceilings. That's when you use the plaster boards for the ceiling covering in itself for residential or commercial use. And then you have the suspended ceilings, which is normally used generally in offices where you have the suspended ceiling boards. And the suspension is normally used to run electrical and mechanical fittings in between the ceiling boards. You have the cathedral ceilings, which are normally found in churches because of the way they are configured. The roofs are configured. You just look from the two sides and it meets at the center. Then we'll look at some of the factors in selecting ceiling finishes. The floor type contributes to the kind of ceiling that you have. The lifestyle of the people that will use the building. Durability is also a factor. You also have fire resistance as a factor to select ceiling type. You have the appearance of the ceiling itself, the function of the building, and the safety of the building occupants. These are different factors that you can use as to select ceiling. Then ceiling materials. You have wooden boards, which are normally used tongue and groove, or use the wood slats itself as wooden boards for that. They're just flat wooden planks or flat MDF panels as ceilings. You also have plaster, where you just plaster the surface of the slab with the mortar, and then you render and paint. You have the plaster boards that you can use, like the POP boards. You have the wooden panels or planks. You have metal ceiling tiles, which are normally easy to install and use in commercial offices. Then for ceiling repairs, generally what affects ceilings are just majorly leakages that may happen that you see on the walls, on the walls and on the ceiling due to leakages that may happen in the building slab. Identify and stop the source of leakage, dry out the surface that is being affected, then the ceiling is not badly damaged, you just scrape and then you paint over it and then it's fine. But if it's badly damaged, you may need to cut out the part that is bad damaged and replace it and then apply a little bit of plaster and paint. You may need to just sand around the edges for smoothness and then you apply the primer before you now do the final paint so that it looks good. Then for roof, a roof is the top covering of a building, including all materials and constructions necessary to support it on the walls of the building or on the upright, providing protection against rain, snow, sunlight, temperature, and wind. Just for short, the roof is just that part of the building that is used to cover the top and to envelope the building itself, just for protection. There are different types of roof. You have flat roof and a heap roof. Those are the major two types, but we still have some sub distribution amongst those two types of roof, which are for the heap roof, you have gable, you have the clipper gable, you have the Dutch gable, the heap itself, you have the mustard, you have the shed, and the flat is just the one that is just flat, as his name connotes. The flat roof actually has a very small slope between 2 to 5 degrees, just to give enough allowance for water to just move on top of the flat roof. Factors for selecting roof finish: how long the finish is, that is the span of the building, its ability to transverse light. For areas where, especially for places like warehouses or industrial areas, they need a little bit of translucent materials to be able to distribute light from the top to the bottom during the day. The cost and how attractive it looks, and then the load of the roof itself also determines that. The load affects it a little bit because you need to know how the building itself. And for most high-rise buildings, especially for buildings that are above like 10, 15 floors, they normally use flat roof because at that height, if you use roof, the wind effect is very heavy and may be able to blow off those roofing material. Types of roof finish: you have the plastic sheet, you have the corrugated galvanized sheet, which the metal sheet. You also have the fiberglass sheet, you have the polycarbonate sheet, and you have tiles, which are just general roofing materials that are used for finishes for the roof. Roofing materials, you have the asphalt. Those one have after asphalt covers over it, like a spray of asphalt, and then sections of the roof elements. You have the wood stacks. Those ones, the asphalt and the roof stacks are not really popular here. Where you have small tiles of roof and it's just set on top of each other as a roofing material over the building coverage. You also have the metal. That's where you have the long span aluminum, the zinc, the copper, and the general steel that we are all used to. Roofing repairs. Damage is usually as a result of storm or heavy downpour. That's when the roofs are properly done. Assess the extent of damage on the roof, and then check for the areas where you have leakages. You use flashing over them just to stop the leakages. Where you have holes, you cover it with flashing, or if it's very bad, you replace the roofing sheet. And once that is done, you fix the damaged area and repair the materials. If it has not affected the roof structure itself, if it has affected the roof, you have to just change the damaged roof structure and fix it back in and cover it up. Then clear out gutters and make it free of them to allow water flow through the roof gutters properly. That's for roof. The next one we'll be looking at are floors. Okay. Floors, we know what floors are. A floor is the bottom surface of a room or a vehicle or any building. Floors may be stone, wood, bamboo, metal, or any other material that can support the expected load that is coming on it. Floors are also used as a nomenclature to demarcate different levels in a building. Although sometimes some people call that story. Let's say like first floor, second floor, third floor. It's just a typical thing. Floors typically consist of a subfloor for support and a floor covering used to give it a good look while working, a good working surface. In modern buildings, the subfloors often has electrical, wiring, plumbing, and other services running through it. As floors must meet many needs. So essentially, the floors need to be safe and meet up with strict building codes so that at least you have the floors that are properly installed and they are safe for people to live on it. There are different types of floors. We have the laminate floor. This is sustained because they are made of laminate materials and they are thick. Either we use wood or you use composite materials as laminate. They are all laminated and have a seal on top of it so that it's durable and it's good, has good water resistance for laminate floors. When they are properly installed, they are easily they are good for good traffic areas because it absorbs sound properly. But laminate floors, can easily be damaged by water if the edges are not protected properly and water gets into it. The water soaks the elements underneath, but on the surface, water does not go through. You also have the floor tiles that we know. They come in different shapes and types and quality. Good for high traffic areas, easy to replace, very durable, easily damaged when heavy objects drop on them. Heavy duty objects also drop on them, it affects and destroy them. You have hard wood floors, that's parquet flooring made of wood, hardwood. You also have the carpet as types of floor. The carpet is the rug that you and the plastic vinyl carpet coverings that you buy from the market. You have the ceramic floor tiles as a finish made of ceramic materials. Very good for water resistance. That's why you use ceramic in the toilets and kitchens. And then it's difficult to clean the grout lines, especially when they are stuck with dirt. But these days you have chemicals that are used to clean that. You also have marble floor tiles, which of course looks very admirable and good. They are durable because they're natural occurring stones. This is where marble, granite falls into just the finish of the floor. Also used for walls and columns. And they are easy to maintain and clean because they are naturally occurring stones. Floor structures, you have the suspended floor. Suspended floors are normally used for places like shop-bar rooms where you have raised floors, really just to ensure that you have maintenance stuff under cables and all that falling over it. You have carpet put on top, and then they are very good for good insulation and soundproof, provides the soundproofing. You have the solid floor, which are normally made from your regular floor, where you have a sub base, you have concrete slabs, and then you have the concrete screed, the cement screeding over it, sand cement screed, and you now have the approved membrane for insulation against water coming up, and sand, what we call blinding, just to ensure that the concrete sits properly on it. Special floors, raised floor is a special floor found in server rooms and in some office areas. You have balconies where you have suspended, projected back. That's treated as special floors. You have glass floor where the material is made of glass. And you have the sprung floor, which is found in indoor halls where you have like basketball courts, the floors that are used for basketball courts or for squash and badminton, for those that play those sports. Those floors are normally made of that material, and as a type of floor. You have some floor covering. You have the soft floor covering, which are made of the carpets and the rugs. They are warm, but they are difficult. You know that already. You have the resilient floor. That's the ones that are durable, easy to maintain. You have plastic or rubber floors. You have the vinyl floor, which are normally put on the floor. You just spread the violin element, and then it holds up the floor in place. The hard floor, these are normally durable but expensive, made of concrete. You have ceramic floors, tiles, granite tiles, marble, vitrified tiles, brick, and my best of all, terrazzo, which is not as popular as it used to be in those days anymore. Terrazzo is very durable and very beautiful as a form of floor covering. So look at it, some problems that are associated with floors, where you have squeaking of the wood floors in certain areas. This normally occurs where, because when you use wood, you know that the joints, they are joined together at different points. Sometimes the screws that they use for the floor may loosen out, and when that happens, it begins to cause that movement where you have where you are moving on the floor, you hear mistakes sound. You look for the areas where you have the screw have moved out, you screw it properly, or the areas where the glue has failed, because sometimes you glue it to the concrete surface. You apply the glue and glue it properly, and it shoots back. When you have a floor vibrating, sometimes that may happen when there's a lot of sound, when there are heavy footsteps. Sometimes this may be as a result of too much load, and then it means that the construction of that floor itself is not adequate to carry the load, and especially when the floors are floating, when they are suspended floors, and when the balancing is not well, you need to look at the balancing, fit it up, and provide the covering over it to be sure it's properly covered. And then you have the floorboards having gaps. Usually this is caused by moist. After a while, when you have the wooden floors, you have moist that have gone in and out, in and out. You see a little bit of gap in between. What it means that you allow the walls dry out, the floors dry out, change the elements that are already bad, and install fresh ones. You have wooden boards cracking. When you have wooden boards, when they are bad, they are cracking off. You just change the ones that are bad, and then you replace them with good ones. Then there are some times that you may have a differential settlement that may cause the floor to crack. The building settlement that I talked about initially. Once you see that, especially for buildings that are supposed to have what we call expansion joints, when a building span is too long. Normally, we make provision for expansion joints for every 40 meters span to be sure that the building settles properly. Where the expansion joints are not properly demarcated, sometimes when there's building settlement, the floor may crack, or sometimes the crack may happen along the expansion joint itself. Once the crack happens along the expansion joint, there is no need for panic. Even if it's just building settlement that's causing the crack, there's no room for panic. Because once it settles just once, the building will take its level and you can continue enjoying your life. But if it's as a result of failing of the foundation, the crack will continue to increase. And once that happens, that building will be marked for demolition. Okay, for floor maintenance, of course, these are the easiest parts that I'm sure all of us will know. We need to learn to clean properly. The types of floor material determines the kind of cleaning you apply to it. For wooden floor, clean the furniture, wipe and strip out all the dirt, mop out the grains, and add a little bit of soap when you're doing the mopping, mop and dry out the water. Mopping is normally we're used to working generally. That's just for wooden floors. Just do the regular cleaning, mop, wipe it with a soft cloth with soap just to ensure that the place is good. Then for tiles and stone floors, remove all the dust by using broom or whatever, just a vacuum cleaner to sweep up. Spray appropriately with cleaning solution on the floor. Spray the floor from every form of sediments that are there. Mop up the floor and clean up as required. Cleaning schedule. You do daily cleaning. That's normal sweeping and mopping. Weekly vacuuming. Monthly. These are just recommended. Something that you can use for your facility. Monthly, you do a little bit of polishing of the surfaces so that you still maintain the way the building, the floor is, so that it looks good. Then we advise that every quarter you do keep cleaning to make sure that the floor still looks very good. Before we go to the next part of the slide, this is 6 o'clock, so we'll just take a regular break for 8 minutes, and then we'll come back by 6:10. I hope that's okay with us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Yes, thank you.